I'm Foxmel and welcome to my Unity tutorial. So today we'll be continuing off the last video from almost a year ago. Whoops. And so today we're going to be making it so the player can properly jump, because as of the last tutorial you can jump infinitely, which is unintended. And so we're going to be fixing that, and we'll also be making a bullet which the player can shoot and it will go towards the mouse. So let's get into it. So first off, I have a bullet sprite here. I imported it and set the proper settings as I did for the other sprites, and then I just dragged it onto the scene, which creates a new object, and I renamed it bullet. So the first thing we're going to do for this is we're going to add a rigid body 2D, which essentially adds physics to this game object. And next we're going to create a bullet script. So in the script we're going to have all the code that's going to make the bullet move towards the mouse. Let's just name this bullet controller. Okay, so now let's open this in Visual Studio. Okay, now we have the bullet script. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to reference rigid body 2D, which is going to allow us to control like different forces that act on the bullet to make it move. And I will name mine RB2D, just for ease of use. So now in the start method, I'm going to take RB2D. I'm gonna tell it what it exactly what it is by saying RB2D equals get component rigid body 2D. And now after this, we're able to use RB2D to, for instance, change the velocities in the Y or X direction. Next, we're gonna create a few variables. First one is going to be a float called speed. This is just going to tell it how fast it's going to go. And next we're going to create two vector 3s. One is going to be called mouse. Another is going to be mouse position. And now what we can do is, in this start method, we're going to tell these variables what exactly they are. So mouse is just going to be input.mouse position, but that is not in like a world coordinates. So what this is it's the exact pixel position on your screen where the mouse is, just mouse. So when we go into the scene, like it's not going to be exact, or it's not going to line up with these boxes, which is world coords. So we have to change from pixel coordinates on your screen to this world coords, for instance the position of our character, so we can tell it like exactly where to go. So in the start method, we're going to make mouse equal to input.mouse position. And now what we have to do is change mouse position. And we're going to make that equal to camera.main, which calls the camera we're using, dot screen to world point. We're just going to use mouse. And now what we can do is we can make the bullet face the direction that the mouse is. So we do that by typing transform.rotation is equal to that, not sure how to pronounce it, dot Euler, which is just a form of rotation essentially. And we're gonna do 0, 0, then we do mathf dot a10 and we're gonna use the mouse position dot x or dot y, oops, minus transform dot position dot y, and we're gonna multiply this by mathf dot radian 2 degree times or minus 90. Just face it in the correct direction. And I forgot to make a second one for the x. Just copy and paste that here. Next, we have to make the bullet actually travel in the correct direction. Okay, so to do this, we do rp2d, which refers to the physics dot add force. This just adds a force that acts on our game object, and we're gonna make it transform dot right, and we're gonna multiply it by our speed. Okay, so now let's put that script on the bullet. And now we have the script on the bullet. We can just change the speed to whatever we want. And then you see when I started it, it faced towards our mouse. Then when I play the game, it's gonna travel towards our mouse. One more thing. Right here, you change gravity to 0. This just makes it so it doesn't fall. One thing I messed up on is in the add force. I'm gonna actually change that to up, which just makes it work with the minus 90. And now, when we start the game, you can see it slowly travels in that direction. I could probably change this to maybe 400. There we go. And now that we have the bullet all done, we're going to move on to the player. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make it so the player can't jump infinitely. And so to do that, I'm going to create a empty game object. And it's going to be a child of the player object. And next, I'm going to make a box collider 2D. And so this is going to be the collider that tells the player whether it's touching the ground. So we're going to make the collider slightly below the player, so if it is touching the ground, this collider will be inside the ground. And next we're going to click is trigger. So essentially what the trigger does is it tells us whether there is a game object inside of it or not. So we can use this in a script. I'll call it grounded. So before we do this, we gotta make a grounded variable in the player. Let's just make a boolean so it can be true or false. I'm just gonna call it grounded. So in the jump method, in order for you to be able to jump, you have to be touching the ground. Go to two and signs, so it's if you press the spacebar and you're grounded, then it will follow through with this line, which makes you jump. You can go ahead and save this. Next, in the grounded script, we can go ahead and delete all of this. We're going to make a reference to our player controller script so we can edit this value. We're just going to call this player. And next, as we did with the rigid body, we're going to do player equals d component, and we're going to do from parent. So this is a child of its parent, which is the player. So its parent has the script, which means that we have to get a component from the parent. So we're just going to do player controller. You can do it other ways, but this is the easiest in this case. Next, we're going to create 3 methods. We're going to do void on trigger enter 2D. And we're going to copy this 2 more times, except we're going to do exit and stay. Now that we have these, we can go ahead and change the player grounded boolean in each. So if the grounded sort of trigger comes into contact with another object, which is in this, the moment it enters, we're going to have the player grounded variable equal to true. And then it's going to be the opposite for this. Whenever your ground variable exits it, it's going to be false. On stay, we're just going to copy this. And now we can save this. And let's just go ahead and name this grounded. And now when we play our game, we can go ahead and see grounded is true. And now I'm spamming space. And now you can only jump whenever you are touching the ground. So it's very nice. So lastly, we're going to make it so the player can spawn these bullets. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a prefab. And what a prefab is it's essentially a spawnable object. And you can store these game objects inside of them and make copies of them in this world. So we're going to drag the bullet into this prefab. You can see now the prefab is this. And so we're going to go into the player controller script, and we're going to make a new if statement. We're going to name it if input dot get mouse button down, and we're going to do 1, which is your left click. And so we need to create a reference or a game object variable, which we can then put the prefab in, so we can create new instances of our bullet prefab in the game through the script. Oops. There we go. Okay, so now we have that. So what we can do is when you press the left mouse button, it's be very simple. We can just instantiate, which creates a new instance of a prefab. The first argument is the bullet object that we have here. And then we're just going to make it so it spawns exactly where the player is and with the player's current rotation. So now if we go back into here, we're going to find a new variable called bullet. We can just drag the bullet prefab into there. And we can delete this, and this will stay. And now when we run our game, there we go. You can shoot bullets. And then you can properly jump around. So it's very nice. Hopefully I will make a new video soon and not a year later like I did with the last one. And one last little thing, just freeze rotation in this so it doesn't spin. Now we have a fully functioning or semi-functioning game. I hope you learned something from this, and I will see you in the next video.